How are you guys? Welcome back to Wargaming China. And today I'm going to talk about the arrival of General Zhang's 5th Army at the Battle of Shanghai in 1932. Now, the 5th Army consists of the 87th and 88th Germanized infantry divisions and a brigade of 1,500 men with artillery of the training division, or the demonstration brigade. Now, the 87th and the 88th are a very interesting division because they're the first of the Chinese Germanized divisions, and they're probably the only two that at this period are identical. Because remember, every time I always say this about Chinese forces, whatever research you're doing about organization, you've always got to remember that it is the rule that is the exception. So any organization or formation that follows a set rule in order of its table of contents is the exception. However, when we look at the 88th and 87th, they are, for the Battle of 32 in Shanghai anyway, follow this identical formations, They are proper twin divisions. Now, I should be talking about the arrival of the 5th Army, but first off I'd like to just say that what you're looking at is a platoon. A platoon of 51 men with an officer. A platoon of 5 sections of 10 men each. Only 2 of the sections have LMGs. So 3 rifle-armed sections of 10 men, led by a first sergeant, and 2 LMG sections of 10 men with 1 LMG and 6 rifles. So already we can see that my formations have too many rifles. So in reality, 4 of these figures shouldn't have rifles. Now, the LMG of the 88th Division, the LMG, there are 2 things about the 1932 Battle of Shanghai that should be stand out. How all the soldiers and the troops are all Cantonese, and how all the LMGs you will see are the SIG KE7. Now, I had to make mine myself, so it was the first time I tried making a LMG, but I was quite happy with the results. There's no figure company that has SIG KE7s. SIG KE7 is a Swiss-made LMG, beautifully made, as only Swiss craftsmanship can be. Very reliable, but it didn't have a quick change barrel, and because the magazine was from underneath, it was very hard to get a good prone position. That and the bipods were extremely long too. The SIG KE7 also served in Ethiopia, I think. Well, it did serve in Ethiopia with the Ethiopian Armed Forces, and it was still being used by Chinese forces in Korea in the 50s. So it was around for a long time in Chinese hands, the SIG KE7, and by all reports it was very reliable and beautifully made firearm. So as you notice here, we'll go back to this. This is a government Germanized division. This is the platoon strength. There are only 2 LMGs in the platoon. If this was a provincial army, I would not recommend that you have any LMGs in any of the platoons. You'd have them at the company level. But as I said, I do this channel for everybody. No matter what rules you use, you can use these formations and build your units with them. So that's a 51-man platoon for the 88th or 87th Division in Shanghai in 1932. Now, if we've got 3 of them, plus a HQ of an officer, a supply officer, 2 buglers, 3 runners, a first sergeant, and nine cooks, we'd have the company HQ. Now, although this is a Germanized division, you'll see straight away if we looked at the company, there's not much in the way of signals to put there. This guy has a field telephone, but it's actually the regimental HQ, because I play by regiments, my own rules. It's very unlikely you see a flag at company level for Chinese forces, but as I said, this is the stand for my regimental HQ. So you can see already that it's bugles and runners for messengers and communications. So 3 infantry platoons of 51 men, plus an officer, 50 men plus an officer, 51. 153 for the men under a company HQ, and then 3, 5, 17 men in total for the company HQ, but the majority, the 9 men you can't see, are cooks because I don't put empty hands on the battlefield, useless mouths, but I'm sure cooks are very, very, you couldn't have an army without cooks, could you? Okay, so then we'll look on now at the higher elements. So there are 2 regiments. Sorry, I've got ahead of myself. At the battalion level, we would have 3 2-man machine gun sections, each with 1 medium MMG. So that would be, so for a battalion, that would be 3 companies with 6 medium machine guns. Now, we're going to talk about the gun company now. Now, the gun company should consist of 2 Oerlikon Model S. So that's 6 machine guns and 2 Oerlikon Model S. By 1932, China imported about 120 of these Swiss-made light anti-aircraft, anti-tank guns that were used on dual mounts, and I think they were replaced because they were a bit unstable when fired in the anti-aircraft position, so Oerlikon brought out a new model, I think it was the JKLS or something like that, and that was a very popular seller in China. So about 120, 130 Oerlikon Model S were bought between 1928 and 1932, but after that the Chinese started buying the Oerlikon, I think it's a JKLS, and they bought those up to a number, I think about well over 800. And so you see already, this is a Germanized division, but its support weapons are Swiss. The LMGs are Swiss. So going back to the medium machine guns, the medium machine guns would have been the Type 24 Maxim, patented and manufactured in China in 7.9257 Mauser. Very reliable weapon. Chinese use the Type 24 for a long time, and it was a very reliable weapon. And to have 6 per battalion, plus two Oerlikons, represented a great improvement to Chinese firepower available to a Chinese regiment previously. Now, a lot of authors will say that I should add a gun company of 2 infantry guns. And I could do that, but in actual fact, even the 88th and the 87th in 1932 didn't have their 75mm gun companies. What the 75mm gun could have been, could either have been a Siberius or a Type 41 75mm Chinese copy of a Japanese gun. I think it's a Type 11. And to be honest, if I was a Chinese commander, I'd be happier with a mortar than either of those 2 guns. So look, I'll do the Siberius gun was in action. It was in action with the men of the training brigade. So let's recap. We've got 3 platoons of 51 men each to a company, plus a company HQ of say 8 figures, and 6 medium machine guns at the battalion level, with 2 medium machine guns attached to each company, with 2 mortars and 2 Oerlikon guns. Now we're going to go and talk about other stuff now. Now, first off, we're going to talk about the uniforms I chose. Now, in all pictures you'll see of the first fighting of Shanghai, and troops that you can verify are the 88th, the 87th Division, and there are ways to verify this. They're the only ones in what seems to be dark winter uniform. They are the only ones wearing the Pudong or Blossom type helmets. I tried to replicate the Blossom type or the Pudong here, because they're 2 different helmets, but I didn't manage to get the former and I didn't quite manage to get the latter. So, that was the best I could do. I took French helmets and I trimmed them down, and I put a splotch on the top, but from 3 feet away it looks right. Now I painted the helmets black, and the reason for this is they're all black and white photos. Colorized photos show them to be black, and I just thought it looked like a nice color to use anyway. So as I said, here they are already in 2 different types of helmets, divisions, and these are divisions that are supposed to be identical. So another thing about the 32nd Army, and the fallacy about KMT forces in general, is that you could have your white sun on blue moon on blue field emblem on the right hand side of your helmet. Well, I'm sorry, you can't do that, because the pictures of troops that you'll see in magazines and articles that show the emblem on the right side of the helmet also show, if you look with good photographic analysis, that everybody in the picture is holding their weapon in their left hand or shouldering it against their left shoulder. So this is a case of the negative being the wrong way around, and then misinterpretation becoming acceptable. And for the war game level, as I said, I didn't put the emblems on, but I know some of you out there would be far better painters than me, or maybe working in a bigger scale, and you'll put those emblems on, so you put them on the left, not the right. Now then, getting back to the uniforms. Look, the figures I chose, if my friend of mine gave me 2 boxes of World War One American infantry. Thanks, Jalen. And then I just looked for spares, what was in my spares box, and I chopped and changed a few figures. You see that's a conversion. Put a few, changed a few weapons. I used the French officers from the French World War One infantry for my Wampo graduate officers. Look, you'll see that I painted the first sergeants in a different uniform. Well, this is because, as I say, I usually play at the regimental level. These forces will be doubling up as encirclement troops or other units, and I wanted to portray officers, regular officers in the KMT that weren't Wampo graduates. Wampo was the military academy established in 1924 by Sun Yat-sen to train the future, and it's the home Wampo officers. Wampo is claimed by both the people in Formosa, in Taiwan, and as the Chinese army itself, as both of where they both originated from, where they start their pedigree from. The university, military academy, I should do a story on it itself, but after 1925, I think it was 25, there was the right-wing factions took over the Wampo Military College, Military Academy, and all left-wing students either fled or were killed. So, but still, those students, those left-wing students who got away, would form a small but vital part of Mao's army. So, getting back to the 5th Army, so that's why the first sergeants or non-Wampo officers. Now, these would be officers that weren't so well educated, maybe not educated enough to have gone to a military academy. As I said, in China, in this time, to go to the army is just beneath contempt. All soldiers are contemptible. So it's only after the Battle of 32 that people start to take pride in the army, and people who have an education and future and young men with prospects start to join the army again, because it's for the first time ever it's seen as a noble thing to do. It's the right thing to do for China. So in 1932 there were still plenty of uneducated lower ranks NCOs throughout even the most elite of the KMT divisions in 1932. So the helmets also, look, you're going to read in a lot of articles that these helmets, and I thought so myself, that these helmets, the Pudong and the Blossom type, were out of service after 1932, and I had thought so myself. But recently I was watching some Chinese documentaries where they were finding the dead of the Chinese forces around Cold Mountain, and they had a mausoleum made of helmets of all the helmets they had found. And I was very surprised to see how many Pudong and Blossom type helmets were in there. So that means that these helmets were still on troops of the 5th and 6th Army of the Chinese Expeditionary Force when they went into Burma in 42. So that's the uniform. So I made them. Right. So why are they here? Why are they in Shanghai? Now, the reason that they are sent to Shanghai is because now that Chang has won his Generalissimo ship, but had the stakes of the game raised by the disobedience of General Kang by opening fire with the guns of Wusong, Chang's getting drawn into a conflict now that is getting out of hand. He is now Generalissimo, but what can he do to reinforce his position, but also reinforce the Chinese forces in and around Shanghai that are battling the Japanese. Well, he's got the Fifth Army under General Zhang in Nanjing. And the Fifth Army, its training grounds are usually exactly where the fighting is going to be coming at. The west side of the railway track, the west and east side of the railway track on the Wusong-Shanghai line, and the land between that and the city centre, which has lots of landmarks in it, but there's a lot of swampy ground covered in canals, drainage ditches, small rivers, deep streams, and these troops are going to be able to use these contours in the land, because they're not hills, they're just contours. None of these ridges and fissures will be over 20 foot tall, 40 foot tall. But so Chang can send these troops there and legitimately say, they're not part of Sixth Army, at the same time as he can illegitimately say, no, they are part of Sixth Army. Because the whole thing is about escalation. He doesn't want to lose face, but he doesn't want the war to get out of hand. So he can send these troops in. He'll know they'll do a good job because they're his finest troops. They're close. They know the terrain. And they're his finest troops. So there would be 2 regiments. So what's a regiment? 9 companies, 18 machine guns, 6 mortars, and 6 Oerlikon S-20s, plus a regimental HQ. Now, we talk about artillery that was attached. It's very vague about artillery attached. The only guns you do see in Shanghai in use are the Siderius 47-75mm guns, dual purpose guns. They're in the hands of the training brigade. I made these models myself, no one makes them, so I knocked these together myself. Siderius is a very interesting gun. I'll do a doco on it. I'll do a short presentation on it in the future. So that was the artillery they had. Also with the tax division, with demonstration brigade, there would have been Oerlikons and Type 24 machine guns or 3.3s machine guns. I'm not quite sure which. Now, the man that usually gets credit for the Germanization of the Chinese forces is von Seeckt, but he's not the father of these formations. The father of these formations is George Wenzel. Now, George Wenzel arrives in Shanghai in China in 1930 as part of the German delegation. There were never more than about 70 German advisors in China at one time, but he really made his mark quickly because unlike a lot of the German advisors who were keen, their job was, they were interpreting their jobs in lots of different ways, the German advisors, and in many ways George Wenzel interpreted his job as to advise the Chinese army how to get the best formations trained up as quickly as possible in the shortest possible time. And that's why these formations, the 87th and 88th Division, the 5th Army, they're not in full strength as far as artillery and mortar assets go. But they are in full strength as far as manpower goes and LMGs go. And various other support weapons. They don't have the artillery. Now then, Wenzel wasn't into say, if you order this, we'll get this, we'll make this. He has, you have this, you have this, you have this, make this formation. So all of the things that Wenzel put into his 21st type division, infantry division, were available in China already. And later, when we see the Germanized divisions in 1937 in Shanghai, we'll see lots of different variations within those divisions, i.e. company size, platoon size, dispersal of LMGs, dispersal of crooks especially. So Chiang has sent these forces in. They're General Wenzel's babies, and you know they're his brainchild. These formations, they've been training hard, and they're going to do well. Their first contact with the enemy would be on the night of the 13th, 14th at Wusong Creek, where they would destroy. I'll do an AAR on it later, but they would be the force that came in behind the Japanese and broke the attack. I'll do an AAR on that next, because today's a nice day. I might, and I'm feeling good, so I might do another few videos today. That's it for the 5th Army. Then, and their reasons for being in Shanghai. I've done their organizations, talked about their equipment, talked about the reason why Chiang was there, talked about the reason they're going to be such fine troops because they know their terrain, talked about their uniforms, their equipment. I talked about how I made them, talked about their advisors. Well, I think that's about it. As I said, you can see my regiment there, in title, and look, when I play my Chinese forces, I usually play them at weapons at about 4:1, a weapons ratio of 4:1 to reality. So I will never play with a machine, with an entire infantry company. Oh, I might do. I might change rules. Who knows? All right then. So there you go. China's first ever Germanized troops, and as I said, these troops are going to do well. They're going to bring a lot of support in the future. They're going to inspire a lot of the other young men to join the army because they're going to do so well. As I said, this is Cantonese. These are Cantonese troops. They're Chiang's personal troops, but the majority of them are from Canton, so Guangdong. And just remember, it's just remember, in China, the Chinese soldier fought with the least for the longest. Take care.